Our mission, and we choose to accept it, is zero injuries and zero environmental impact. A healthy workforce and environment is key to our nation's continued success. The Mission Zero podcast is a deep dive with the industry's top experts into the health, safety, and environmental aspects of today's workplace. Our mission is to be a platform for new ideas and strategies that, when implemented, will improve our safety, our environment, and how we govern out business. We are making the world safer, and we're going to have fun doing it.
We're ready when you're ready.
Go ahead.
I'm recording.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Welcome everyone back to a new episode of the Mission Zero podcast. Today is our third part of our series on human trafficking, with the purpose of bringing awareness to the seriousness of the human trafficking issue in the world. Through these podcasts, I've been inviting guests who are brave enough to tell their stories. And today, my guest is Nakia Vestal. I hope I got that name right.
You did. You did.
I was nervous about that. I was like, where does the emphasis go? I didn't want to be nervous. But I welcome you and thank you for the courage to come speak with me about this and to be open about it. That's amazing. And, it's been amazing to Dominique, who I met with as well. So I applaud you very much on it, and thank you for that. And I'd like to start with a little bit about your past, where you're from, where you grew up, and kind of how you got here in Houston.
Okay. Well, I'm Nakia Vestal, and I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. Well, I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. I grew up in Knoxville, East Tennessee. After high school, I went to Atlanta. Well, my mom put me out, so went to Atlanta, Georgia. And
what age?
At 17.
Okay.
Yeah. Stole a car. Went to Atlanta at the age of 17, and that's kind of where the serious trafficking began. Even though I was trafficking in Knoxville, Tennessee, I was as 16 and 17, but we didn't call it trafficking back then. We didn't know. The name wasn't called trafficking, but I was involved in prostitution when I was in high school. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And how did you end up in Houston?
Oh, God, that's a long story. In Atlanta, a lot of the group of guys that I ran with, they were all either dope boys, drug dealers. That's what we call them. That's what a dope boy is. Drug dealers or pimps, hustlers. And everybody around me was getting locked up or going to jail. And I just got really into church and, my faith, running from God. I didn't want to, in Atlanta, I started to separate from everybody, and I kind of lost my identity. So that's what brought me to Houston. I wasn't even really trying to be to Houston. I was trying to go to LA. And one of my old roommates from Atlanta, she's from Beaumont, and she moved back to Beaumont. And I stopped to visit her on the way. And 2 months later, I'm pregnant with a baby. And
what age was this?
I was 27. 26 turning 27. Yeah, I was 27. And I know I didn't want to go back to Atlanta, and that's what brought me to Houston. I was in Beaumont for about 1.5 years, and it was just too slow and too country. Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to come to the city. Yeah. Which is it was just a bigger country town compared to Atlanta. You know?
It's a little less cosmopolitan than Atlanta is. And I grew up in Georgia, but not in Atlanta, but the rural part of Georgia. But and so how long have you been in Houston?
I've been here 18 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Time flew.
Longer than me. I think I'm on my 10th or so year. So, well, that's good. Yeah. I mean, it's a good place to, succeed, I'd say.
I came here, but for the purpose to sell my body. I had my son was not even 1 yet when I came here, and I knew how I could easily make money, so that was the purpose of me coming to Houston. Yeah. But it was different from Georgia, because in Atlanta, the money, you got way more money. And then you came here and the girls made no money. And so it was like, what is this? So I had no choice but to kind of boss up and become independent.
Okay. Well, let's, if you don't mind, let's kind of dive in a little bit on your, the origin of this. Can you first of all, how old were you when the trafficking began or the grooming began? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
So with my story is I was molested as a child from the age 3 and up. Now, when I was 9, that was when the man was like probably mid to late 30s. So that's when I lost, I will say, my innocence was at 9 years old. And that's when I became hypersexual as a child, as a teenager. By the time I was like 14 and 15 years old, I just wanted to run away from home and go dance on Soul Train or be a stripper or pose for Playboy magazine.
Be careful, you're dating yourself.
I know. I'm telling you,
Soul
like,
Train.
I know, but it's crazy how after that I saw nothing but sex. Everything on TV, sex was what was in my head, and that's what I wanted to. It wasn't like, oh no, it's like that's what I thought I wanted to do. So when I was in high school, by the time I was 16 years old, I was like already the little dope boys on the other side of town. I was charging them money like for sex.
What age was it?
Like 16.
16.
Mm-hmm.
Was there after that? So did you find your own way into this, or was someone?
I found my own way, but there were people there along the way. Mm-hmm. When I was 17 years old, I was a senior in high school, and by then I already was like, I know I want to go to California. I want to pose for Playboy. I want to be a stripper. I got, like there's like the Backpage magazines, those little local sleazy magazines that each town has.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it until Dominique.
Yeah, so me and my best friend, when we were in high school, we found that little magazine you see, and there was a number for escort service. And I called that number on the escort service, and a guy responded back. It was an older white man, probably in his, I would say, early 50s. And I met up with him, and that was kind of like the first time there was no penetration involved, even though it was some sexual acts, but that was kind of the first time that I felt like dirty and disgusted. He didn't force me, but I did it. And that was kind of the first time that after that, it was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Like, I was ruined after that. And there were one of my step cousins in Tennessee, he had a friend who played in the NFL. So he would come back to Tennessee, Knoxville, to visit his family. And I hooked up with him and one of his friends who played in the league. And I was 17. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay.
But he paid me. I mean, it was sexual. That was the whole thing. But we didn't know it was, he knew my age and he knew I was in high school and, but I didn't know it was like trafficking or any, I didn't know. There was no, like I said, there was no name to it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't forced. It wasn't a gun to my head, but it was still wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's taking advantage of innocence. And, and even though it's, it doesn't necessarily have to be by physical force or by threat, as we see in a lot of cases. But this, it can be that way as well. It's just older guys taking advantage of impressionable young people,
right.
and girls. But you mentioned the hypersexuality point. Since I've gotten into this and joined the fight against it, I've read a lot and I've tried to get educated as much as possible in psychology and things like that. That is common.
Yeah.
That is not an unusual thing. That's kind of what happens. It becomes. I'm not going to sit here and say I remember exactly what it said, but yeah, it's a common reaction. It happens. It's like a gosh, what is the word I'm grasping for here? But it's a common reaction. It's what happens. It's a way to dealing with the problem is to run it more and do it more, and so that's why that's what happens to young women who are molested at a very young age.
Yeah, and I think you're crying out for attention.
Yeah.
But the wrong kind of attention.
Sure.
Like now I can imagine having a child now and you have Instagram and all in social media. Back then we had like MTV Raps and we had MTV and VH1 and BET, but I would see the videos and I would see the girls in the videos, and that's what I want to do. I want to go in, that's what I wanted. That was our like kind of way of, it was like, or we had like magazines and stuff. But now it's so sad now because you can just open up your phone and it's just right there.
Yeah. Was there any time, or I guess at any point, was there anyone in your life that was trying to bring you away from the lifestyle, or was it?
No, when I was a senior in high school, my English teacher told me, and I know she was talking to me because of the way I would dress and, oh, gosh, it was crazy. But she was like, some of you don't need to go to college. You know, there's the oldest profession in the world. You'll make $75,000 a year. Prostitution is what
English teacher.
Mm-hmm. Because I failed all my
teacher.
Yeah.
Sorry.
She probably was frustrated, and I can't blame her, but she probably was frustrated because she didn't know that I was molested. She didn't know. She just knew I was I would come to school half naked and just overly sexual, and I failed all my tests, and I didn't study, and I didn't. So she probably didn't, but that was the wrong thing to say. But when she said 75,000, I was like,
a lot of money.
That's what I need to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I've learned a little bit about that as well. You know, people, when someone's behavior may be erratic, it may be detrimental to you, and it may be detrimental to them. And there may be a good reason. There may be trauma that's in their life. I know it came up with me personally, and I'm not comparing it to the trauma you experienced. But last year I was extremely sick, and I couldn't be the joyful, happy person I was. And I know sometimes I was grumpy and it was kind of maybe snappy to people. And I'm sitting there going, people don't know what I'm going through. And how many people have I come across and that were, terrible to me, or their behavior seemed erratic, or some type of wild behavior. And yeah, I mean, young women, if there's a lot of sexuality involved in a young woman, I mean, I'd say the chances are greater than not that something's terribly wrong with the men in her life.
Yeah. Yeah.
At some level. I mean, I'm not saying that all, because that would be making accusations to innocent men out there, but a lot of times that would be the case. So this brings us up to you as a 17-year-old. You're still in Knoxville at the time?
Yeah, I was still in Knoxville. I was still in high school.
Okay, still in high school. In Knoxville, it's not that big of a place, is it?
Knoxville's very small.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of things that happen in their very small place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
we discussed that too, is that, trafficking is actually easier in rural areas. I was talking with Ken from the coalition, and he was telling me that. I was a little bit surprised to hear that as well. But so 17, is that when you got to Atlanta?
Yeah, I went to Atlanta. Well, my mom put me out right after high school, and I don't blame her. I was rebellious, but I mean, my mom had mental problems, and I just never.
Was she aware of what was going on with you? Was she aware of the?
No, my mom was clueless. My mom was in her own world, and she was just not a miserable person, but just very unhappy with her life and her situation. So, I just didn't feel the love or the encouragement or the positivity. Everything was always negative, or I look like a slut, or I act like a slut, or this or that. And
did she have substance abuse problems?
No, but she was on medication for mental illness, like bipolar medication. So she was, when she came home, you just never know what you were going to get, Yeah.
So, and your father was never?
No, my dad was off married to someone else and didn't think twice about us. I had a stepfather who tried. He tried, but it was too late because he married my mom at 14.
Yeah.
When I was 14, he came in way too late. He tried, but
the damage was done.
Damage was done.
Yeah. So at the time you graduate high school, and what happens after high school?
After high school, I just wanted to go out and party and club, and so me and my sister actually snuck out one night, and we've been sneaking out like since I was 15. We've been sneaking out, going to adult clubs, lying about our age, saying we were 21. And that particular night, my mom, we came home and the screens are on the windows, and she's like, "You're not coming back in here." And I was like, "Fine, I don't want to go back anyways. I'm going to California. In my mind, I want to go to California." But I told my sister, "You have 2 more years of high school left, so you go back home and just try to just go back and graduate,
What was the reason for why California?
Soul Train.
Really?
I'm telling you. Since I was 5 years old, I wanted to dance on Soul Train. And I almost had the opportunity.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, but I almost had I stands for R. Kelly as well. I'm on that Surviving R. Kelly Part 4 documentary. Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah, Part 4. I had a purple dress on, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have an encounter with him or?
No, the crazy thing was he didn't treat me like that. Like.
How old were you?
I was 18. I was a stripper. So when I at 17, when I left, and me and some girls from the other side of town. So I lived like in a middle class neighborhood because of my mom remarried my stepfather, who kind of, he worked, had a nice little job. But I would cling to like the girls from like the projects and stuff, like the girls in the rough side of town.
Why?
I don't know, because they were just they didn't pretend who they were. They were sexual and they were hustlers and they were all about, just.
And they didn't hold you accountable.
They didn't hold me accountable. And
It's easy.
It was easy, and they just magnified everything that I wanted to do and be. And so when my mom put me out, I went and stayed in the projects for like a week with nothing. Like I had nothing. So basically I had to go in the store and steal underwear and deodorant and toothpaste, and these girls, that's what they did, So we had went out because we partied. We would go to clubs partying. We saw this guy. We walked to the gas station, and there was a guy who was trying to pick us up. And he had a car seat in his car. And we were like, yeah, go in the stores and get us beer. I'm 17. He go in the store, and we take off in his car. Yeah, so that's how we got to Atlanta. It's crazy.
You took the car to Atlanta?
We took the car.
Wait, I thought you said he had a car seat.
He had a baby car, not the baby in the car, just the car seat. So I feel bad for whoever he was.
Maybe you shouldn't be saying this.
No, it was a car seat, but he had no business trying to buy beer for us young girls. He thought he was going to get some action.
So what, you just drove to Atlanta and
we drove to Atlanta, and the minute we got to Atlanta, we crashed the car. She ran into the back of somebody. It was crazy. But yeah, so Atlanta was crazy. So I'm 17 in Atlanta, just living day by day, going to clubs, meeting celebrities. I met Tupac, meeting different rappers, because Atlanta's like Black Hollywood. So even though I was in the streets, I was kind of like inching toward my dream at the same time. The girl who I initially went with, she ended up going back home. So when I was there by myself, that's when the craziness started. Like, I ended up meeting a guy who let me live with him, who kind of became my boyfriend. But he didn't pimp me or anything, but he was very abusive and he sold drugs. And we got into a really bad fight one night, and he put me out, and I was out on the streets, and that's when I met a pimp, like a for real pimp.
Okay, so that's kind of where I was about to ask.
Yeah.
So, did the boyfriend at the time? Were you still involved in prostitution or
no? With my boyfriend, no, because I wasn't.
Okay.
I thought, okay, he was a young, nice looking guy. He let me live with him. It was good. In the beginning, it's always fun and cute and everything, and then it goes to crap. But got into a fight because I was very violent as well. Not only was I hypersexual, I was very violent. I was very like throw glass. I was just harm myself, self-harm. So it was very volatile. It was crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, he thought I was crazy.
So you fight with him, you get kicked out of there or whatever. I don't know.
I get kicked out of there.
And then you met.
Yeah, so I called one of my guy friends from Tennessee who was a barber. He came and he picked me up, and we went ate, and then he left me at the Waffle House. I was like, can I just come sleep on your couch? And he was like, I'm staying with somebody. You can't stay here, blah, blah, blah. And he just left me there at the Waffle House. And then it's probably 10 o'clock at night, and then a pimp pulls up in a Cadillac, a 4-door Cadillac, and I think it was one girl in the back seat. No, it was one girl in the front seat and 2 girls in the back seat already. And they had like their lingerie on. So I already knew what time it was, And he was like, hey, who are you? Do you want to, we come stay with us. We got a place for you to stay. And I was just like, okay. Because it was either I do that or I go find somewhere to lay my head for the night. So he took us to a strip club called Nikki's. It was like a popular strip club back then. And then after we left the strip club, we went back to their house. And they gave me a place to stay. I could wash up. They gave me some clothes. They The next morning when we woke up, he was like, hey, I'm going to take you. Let's go get our nails and toes done. And we're going to go eat breakfast. And I was
This was the guy or one of the girls?
This was the pimp.
Oh,
this was the guy. This
Yeah.
was the guy. And I was like, okay. And he seemed like, I mean, I knew he was a pimp, but he wasn't like, he didn't yell or force or scream or any of that. But I knew, okay, it's cool. Everything's, we got our nails. He took me to get my nails and my toes done and took me to get something to eat. And then after that, and he was like, okay, now we're going to go make some money. And then I was like, oh my God, what are we doing? Like, because usually I was my own I was renegade. So even at 17, I was my own kind of boss or my own kind of, and to have somebody like do that, I was like, that's when reality hit. And then he drove us to these really sleazy, like, they were like little bungalow motels, like individual little houses that he drove us to, and he got each of us rooms or whatever. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm just praying in my head, like, Lord, like, I don't want to do this. I'm scared as shit. Like, I don't want to do this. And I remember when the first car pulls up, we all had to stand outside our individual doors. It was like say bungalows here on each side, and there's a driveway. And of course, I'm the new face. I'm fresh meat. So the first guy who pulls up, he's like, I want her. He points to me. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. Like, Lord, like, I'm scared. I'm praying. And then like, I don't know what to do. I can't run. I don't know where to go. So the guy comes in the room, and you know what? It goes down, but he does have a rubber. It goes down. And I was just thinking like, Lord, I'm in my head. I'm like, Lord, like, I don't want to be here. The next car that pulls up is another car that's pulling up, and he points at me. And I look behind his car, and there was Atlanta Police Department, and I run out, and I'm like, help me, help me, help me. That saved me right there. That saved me. Yeah.
Did you not face retribution from them for
No,
that?
I never. I didn't want to see him again. I didn't want to run into them again. He scared me.
So this was the same night?
Yeah. No. This was the second night. The first night I met him, he took us to like a strip club.
Oh, okay.
This was the second night. I mean, it wasn't even night. It was day, because during the day we woke up, we got our nails done, and we went to eat lunch. So this was probably like 2 in the afternoon.
So what happened in your life after that night?
Oh God, I went back to the boyfriend. Who we had a volatile relationship. I went back, and that probably lasted about a month. And then the same thing happened again, but this time I stole his money and his gold watches and his VCR. We had VCRs back then. And I took his car keys and I threw them in the pool. And I went and got me a little motel. And from there, that's when I was kind of really on my own in Atlanta. And I would go to like strip clubs and catch dates or tricks or whatever, and did that for a few weeks. And then I started dancing. I started dancing in Atlanta. I started dancing at a strip club. Yeah. And the pimps were coming at me because they would hang out. They would come up there, and especially when it's over, they're all outside. Like, I'll take you home. Or you come stay with me. I'll hook you up. Blah blah blah. I'll take care of you. Yeah. No, bro.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that a typical thing, or is that just at certain strip clubs?
I don't know, but I did have another encounter before with that pimp. I did meet another pimp, a wannabe pimp, who tried to put a gun in my head. Like, he put a gun on me, but I was able to get away from him too. Thank God. This was like right when I first started dancing, and he was like, you can come stay with me. And I didn't even think he was a pimp. I just thought he was some little cute guy, and he was happy to have a pretty girl there and whatever.
Take care of you.
Yeah.
It's always
I'm going to take care of you. And I know I wasn't having sex with him. So I just wanted to, I would even give you money. Like, if you just let me sleep on your couch. And then one night he was like, either you're going to give me some, or I'm going to take it, or you're going to give me your money. And I was like, I'm not giving you nothing. And then he pulls out his gun. He has like it looked like it was like an AK-47. And he pulls out his gun on me. And that is
an amazing fear, isn't it?
Oh God. I slept on the couch. He slept in his room. I slept on the couch. And the next morning when he woke up, he left, and he was like, I'll be back. He better not go nowhere, So out of fear, I'm froze. I'm paralyzed. Like, I'm still there. I could have left, but the fear. When he came back, he opened that door. There was a male lady behind him, and I ran out, help me, help me, help me. So I was able, and I went to somebody's apartment in the complex, and I called the police, and the police came, and that's what helped me. Like, they got me out of that situation. And the same guy would come back, that little same wannabe pimp guy. But by then, the managers at the strip club, they protected me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long did you stay at the strip club? Like,
I was there for 3 weeks, and then I met R. Kelly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the exact situation with R. Kelly?
Well, actually, one of my family members met him before me, and I can't say her name because she doesn't.
Yeah, no problem.
She met him before me in Tennessee, in Knoxville, Tennessee. And then she calls me and she's like, hey, I met him and he wants to fly me to Chicago. And I'm like, well, tell him that I'm coming with you. So she came to Atlanta. She caught the bus, the Greyhound, because it's only like 3 hours from Knoxville to Atlanta. Yeah. She caught the Greyhound bus. And he was like, yeah, bring her. And he flew us that same night to Chicago. And I met him, and he was cool. Like, he was the coolest guy. Like, all these stories, I'm not going to say the girls are lying or the girls are making this up or but that's just not the R. Kelly that I knew, or Rob. We called him Rob. That's not the Rob I knew. He didn't force anybody. He fed, like, he took me out the strip. That's what I was like. He took me out the strip club. So I respected him in the fact that I'm getting actually paid to do what I love doing. I love dancing. I'm a natural dancer. I'm getting paid to do what I love doing, and a lot of money, and I don't have to take my clothes off anymore, So he was crazy. He was crazy in the sense of an artist. Any artist is crazy. Like, there's a thin line between sanity and insanity when you're an artist.
So many of them are suicidal as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I saw that. So I choose to, when I saw that, because I was like, he reminds me of my mom, so I chose to keep my distance from him and kept it professional.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So how long were you in Chicago?
I was in Chicago for, I went there in November of 1994. And I did the 94 Music Billboard Award show. That's what I went up there to rehearse. Because, so when we went to Chicago, he took us out. We went out dancing and whatever, him and my, family member. And then he was like, girl, you could dance, He was like, I'm going to bring you on tour with me. I thought he was like BSing. And he did. When I got back to Atlanta, he called me. He was like, hey, I want you to do the 94 Billboard Award show. I'm going to fly you up here. And he did. And he was like, my manager's going to call you, get your information. So, and then I remember my first night up there and went to the studio, and he was like, if you need anything, let me know. Anything you need, let me know. He was very nice, So.
How long was this going on?
So I danced November, December, January. I danced for 3 months with him, because I even did the European 12-play tour. Like, we went to Europe. Like, he's the first one we went to.
So there was any kind of prostitution or anything going on during this time?
Not during this time. When tour was over, he did call me, though, because he knew I was a stripper. He did call me. I would say it was probably April of 95, or maybe March of 95. And he called me. He was like, hey. And I was like, hey. He was like, you used to be a stripper, right? And I was like, yeah. He was like, can you give me like 6 girls to come dance for me? I was like, yeah. Because when I went back home, all the girls knew I danced for him. So I was popular in the clubs with everybody. And I was like, yeah, I can call some girls up. And he was like, oh, you know what? I changed my mind. How about you come dance for me and I'll pay you for all 6 girls? But I didn't do it. I was like, you're my boss. And he's like, we're not working right now. I ain't your boss right now. But I didn't do it.
Yeah, good. And so after this point in your life, did you go back to it?
I didn't go back to stripping, but I went back to prostituting. Yeah.
And was that on your own, or was that?
That was on my own, but you would meet guys, and maybe they didn't know they were traffickers, or maybe they
didn't consider themselves as such.
Yeah, didn't consider, but I never had like a gorilla pimp, or my pimps were like Romeo pimps. They were like my boyfriend. And
what is a gorilla pimp?
A gorilla pimp is somebody who will beat the crap out of you.
Okay.
Who puts fear in you. A Romeo pimp is like a boyfriend. He's your boyfriend, but he's okay with you sleeping with other men for money.
Isn't that how the grooming starts?
Yeah.
Though?
Yeah.
They pretend to be your boyfriend, and then next thing you know,
yeah.
I kind of got the story from David Reed. It's pretend to be your boyfriend, get you comfortable, and take you out to nice dinners and such. And then the next thing you know, we might gonna make the rent. Do you mind doing this? And that's kind of how it starts. Is that similar to? Is that something you experienced?
Well, mines were more of me. That was just what I did as a profession, and they were okay with it. you know, so you're not my boyfriend, and you clearly don't love me if you're okay with me going out sleeping with somebody else. It wasn't until let's say 96. I'm trying to see, 97, 98. That's when I met my real traffickers. I was trafficking on the international level. I was going to Nigeria. I was going to Paris. I was working at Bernini, this upscale men's clothing store. But my goal was to meet a rich man. So that's why I'm going to go work at a wealthy men's clothing store.
Is this Atlanta?
Yeah, this is Atlanta. Okay. It was called Bernini. It was at Atlanta Airport. It used to be an upscale men's. It was at Lenox Mall, and they had one at Atlanta Airport called Bernini, and they sold like Canali suits and Coogee sweaters, and everything was like 6,000.
Attracting rich men.
Yeah, so that's
the only people in there.
Yeah, and that was what I was going to go do, was meet a rich man. So, and I ended up meeting two Nigerian guys, rich Nigerian guys, who one brought me back to Nigeria.
And these were traffickers.
At the time, I didn't know they were traffickers. They were just like, hey, we can bring you back to Nigeria. We can introduce you to... Let me tell you, there was an American guy who introduced me to those Nigerian guys. He was the trafficker. Yeah, it was an American guy. He was like, hey, I can make you a lot of money. I have these Nigerian guys in town. They're wealthy. He was the trafficker.
So you go to Nigeria.
Well, at first I go to London.
Oh, okay.
I go to London.
I'm skipping your story.
No, I go to, because one of the guys did like me. It's all about money. I didn't give a shit. It was just a money thing, but he liked me. He took me to London. And from there, I ended up meeting a very wealthy guy. I mean, Bentley with a driver, like penthouse, like stuff you see on TV. And that guy is the one who took me to Nigeria. But it wasn't trafficking. It was more so as being his girlfriend, or the girlfriend experience, I'm thinking. So it probably was trafficking. I don't know, like, say back then we didn't call it trafficking. We just, I'm just going to go get some money.
Well, because I think you probably had the same misconception in your own mind that a lot of people do, that trafficking necessarily involves violence or threats of violence. It doesn't. You know, some people can have horrible experience with violence, like Dominique did. But I think more often than not, there's not a whole lot of violence. There's a lot of psychological chaos going on there, psychological warfare on young women who essentially have been let down by everyone in their life.
Right.
So I hear that from you, and I realize that that's the same thing with Dominique. There was nobody who came through for her.
Right.
There was nobody that did, and it sounds kind of maybe your mother cared, maybe she didn't have the ability to properly care because of her mental condition, and that's. That's tough, but that's a reality that we have to face. And some people are dealing with that type of thing, and it makes them an ill-equipped parent. Because all it takes is sex to make a child, right? You don't need to pass a cognitive test or anything like that to have a child, right? And so, it seemed to be the same issues as that. Again, no one cared, no one reached out, no one said, "Hey, you didn't have an angel to save you," So you get to Nigeria. How long were you there?
I was there probably for a few weeks, but I was going back and forth. Back and forth.
Were you actually, prostituting there, or was it just with the guys that you went with? I
mean, it was just the guy that I was with, but I mean, I really didn't like him. So you can say it is what it is when you are just dating somebody just to get money. You're a prostitute. And it's not like, let's not sugarcoat it, because I sugarcoated it for years, but it was basically for the money. Yeah.
So when you said that's when the real traffickers,
that's when, like, I'm sorry, my nose is like, tissue. Yes, please. Okay. I have like a little sinus.
I'll get him to edit it down.
Sinus infection going on.
He probably hears it. He probably heard you say that. Let me see if I can get one.
I may have something in my purse. Let me see if I got.
Work okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll make sure I.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I had
put the snot on the video.
Yeah. Okay.
See you blowing your nose on YouTube. Yeah, I figured he probably heard it. So He was already up looking.
Yeah. But I would say the high end trafficking, because in Atlanta I still was like going to the strip club and hooking up with guys like NFL guys, because they were like the biggest paying tricks there were, and they're not gonna beat you. They have too much to lose. So that was safe. That was safe for me, was the NFL, the sports guys, because and the sports guys and like the high end guys, because they have too much to lose.
Why were they paying for it though?
I think it was just the culture.
I mean, I lived in Arizona for a while, and I had a football friend, and I'm not going to tell their names.
Yeah.
But their behavior was typical of 20-something-year-olds. It was not what you're describing.
Yeah.
I mean, they went out and partied, but I would say they were on certainly the right side of good, right? And so, they lived in the hookup lifestyle a little bit, but they went out, and it wasn't necessary to pay. I mean, the women were just throwing themselves at them. So what is it, a power thing? Why do they pay?
It could have been, or it could have been just that guy, that guy. There's always that trick. There's always, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just calling it like it is. There's always a trick out here. There's always waiting somebody to get got. That's what we would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I knew what to wear. I knew what, like I say, this is me in my early 20s, just from the age of 9, just my crap, it just got bigger, and my skills just got, I knew how to seduce, and I knew how to be seductive, and I knew how to manipulate.
Yeah.
I was very manipulative. I knew how to manipulate to get what I wanted.
I think the word I heard is, never mind. There was a word for it that I heard someone use one time. Finessing.
Yeah.
Finessing. That's what the word was.
I knew how to finesse.
So, okay. So at this point in your life, is it, do you go back to Atlanta? Is that where you're?
I'm in Atlanta. I'm living in Atlanta at this time in my life. Yeah.
So is there a pimp involved at that time, or are you just you're just kind of on your own?
I'm on my own, because there was a bunch of pimps in Atlanta, and there was a bunch of pimps that wanted me to come and be their bottom girl. Like, these pimps lived in like big 3-story houses. I'm not doing that. I would go eat with them, have barbecues with them. I don't want a man pimping me, but I hung with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They never tried to force you into it?
They never forced me into it.
Why was that? Because, I mean, I guess lessons, movies and things are off on that.
I think
if they let women get away with
that. There are girls that are forced into it. I was just a tough cookie. Like, I knew that I didn't want a man controlling me. I didn't want a man controlling my money, controlling my body, because that one night that I had with that pimp scared the crap out of me. That one, I did not want that.
When the gun was pulled on you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That even the one with the motel, the sleazy bungalow motel thing, I knew I didn't want. This is the thing. I didn't want to be a street hoe. Yeah. And those kind of pimps are like the street hoe pimps. Sure. I didn't want to be a street hoe. I wanted to be like that
escort,
high-end escort.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're in your early 20s. So how long did this part of your life last? I mean,
it lasted a long time. So when I was 22 years old, let's say from 16 to 22, I started going to church, because I was doing a lot of X pills at that time. Like, we were doing X pills. Like, that was the drug right there, and cocaine too. I started going to church and just
at 22.
Yeah, 22. Okay. I mean, I grew up in the church, but I found one particular church, and I think the X pills just started eating at the serotonin that was in my brain. And I just went into a state of depression. Like, I felt completely empty, and nothing made me happy. Not the money, not the clothes, not the lifestyle, not the fancy things. So I started going to church, and I got saved at 22. I gave my life to Christ at 22 years old, and I got into the Bible. I mean, it didn't last long. Because I didn't have a skill. I didn't have the education to take care of myself. So I went back to the only thing I knew.
So when did you, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is, when did this end? Like, or how did it end?
Oh God, it ended here in Houston.
Okay, so you got all the way to Houston.
It ended in Atlanta. But I worked like a regular job where I was making like $11 an hour, and I ended up getting evicted from my place. And
were you ever arrested?
No, I was never
had a record.
I was never arrested for prostitution. I hid under the radar. I had and And I had another guy, and I guess he was a trafficker. I didn't know it was a trafficker, but he owned an independent record label in Atlanta. He made a lot of money, but he was a big time drug dealer. Like he big time. So he would introduce me to his people. He would introduce me to his like Mexican Connect. I would supply girls to the Mexican Connect. Like this guy was bringing bricks in on
prostitutes or
I mean
dancers?
we dancers who would sell their bodies. So pretty much whatever it was, regular girls who wasn't dancers. She could be a school teacher, but she's selling her body. Yeah. Anybody who want to get some money. I remember my sister telling me, please hook me up. I'm like, no, you're not. I'm not getting you involved in this. No.
See, she had someone that cared.
Yeah.
I mean,
I cared for my sister on a couple of times because I remembered that when I was 9 and the guy that molested me, he was like in his mid-30s or whatever. My sister went to use in the bathroom and he was going in after my sister and my little 9-year-old body. I'm like, ow! Like I stopped. No.
Is that guy is that a family member?
He was.
You don't have to tell me.
He was the babysitter's older brother, and the babysitter was. I know it's gonna sound crazy. My stepdad's brother's girlfriend. She probably was like 21, and she left. She was supposed to watch us, and she left us with him. Yeah. And he was drinking beer all day, like. Oh, disgusting.
So what brought you to, I mean, I guess in Houston, what happened? Why did you, I guess, when was your revelation? Or how did you escape it?
Oh God, I got tired.
It wasn't a moment.
It was, I would stop and I would start. I would stop and I would go back. I was tired. I was tired in Atlanta, but I didn't have a skill or the education. I think when I came here, I met a guy who I consider, he was my trick, but he was my boyfriend trick, you know. It started out kind of as a Romeo kind of pimp thing, and he did fall in love with me, and he told me to stop. Because I remember one night I was like, if you love me so much, why do you want me to do this? Or why are you letting me do this? And he was like, well, stop. And then I stopped, and I went to school. I enrolled I got a job. I started working at a wig store in River Oaks. Yeah. And he was like, hey, because he was like,
wig store in River Oaks.
Yeah, called like Cabela Boutique.
That sounds.
I mean, but it was like, it was nice. We were in River Oaks Shopping Center. Yeah. It was the first time I felt proud to, I was only making like, I think $12 an hour, but I didn't care. I was in a fancy area. I was proud. Like,
to those listening, River Oaks is the exclusive neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, it's exclusive. And I was the manager. Like, the guy made me the manager of the wig store. And it gave me, like, that was a start for me.
So you had independence and you had self-reliance and all the things that, I guess in the recovery homes, that's the part of the development process, right? Yeah. So that's what I was trying to focus on is vocation, right?
Yeah.
Because... yours is a story, but it's not as violent as some people. It's not as abusive as some people, and for that, I'm happy for you. Right. Because it's tough to face the real hard violence and to come out of that, because that abuse, that trauma never goes away.
Even though it's violent, I'm gonna tell you what the hardest thing is, because right now you have girls on Instagram that don't think they're prostitutes, and you are a prostitute. If you are sleeping with a man for shoes, a bag, to pay your rent, to pay your bills, to support your lifestyle, you are a prostitute. Yeah. That's the scariest thing, and that's what I was, and it's the biggest deception.
There seems to be a serious drop in the idea that it's wrong. Like they don't see it as something they shouldn't be doing.
Because you're not on Bissonnette or you're not on what airline, and you're not walking the streets, but you're in a high-end hotel.
You have a sugar daddy.
And it's glorified.
Yeah.
It's the same. Can I say shit?
Yeah.
It's the same shit.
Yeah.
It's just when you're high-end, it's sugar-coated.
Yeah.
It's gold and diamonds, but it's the same. And that's why I was no better than that girl, because you're selling your body, you're selling your soul. And after you finish that, you still feel empty. But those girls, a lot of them have pimps and they're on drugs, and their vice is what makes them feel better is drugs. Not for me. What made me feel better was buying shiny things. Because I'm going to tell you, remember I told you when I was 17 and I called an ad in a paper and there was a guy who had an escort service, and he was an older, like, man, and middle-aged white man. And it was no penetration, but it was some activity. And he gave me $40 after that. And I felt disgusted after he ejaculated. Gave me $40. And I felt disgusted. Like, oh my God. Like, ugh. I felt like that 9-year-old girl again on the inside.
Yeah.
And I remember I went home, and my mom, we went to Walmart that evening, and I bought a watch for $40. With that $40, and it made me feel better. It took that dirtiness away. That was when the corruption began, because I know if I keep doing this and I buy shiny things, I can cover up how I really feel. And that was me. I was the girl with all the shiny things. I had a guy buy me a Benz paid for, a Rolex. I mean, but
you're too young to realize it was costing you your dignity.
It was costing me my dignity. It was costing me my soul. My soul. It chips away at your soul.
So was your final recovery, was it religious based, or was it
both? Both. It was both.
When did you, I guess, when did you find, how old were you when you finally ended it? I mean,
oh God. Escaped. Even when I went back to cosmetology school in 2015 in my late 30s. I'm 46 now. I went back to cosmetology school.
I asked that without asking it. That's a special skill. You can't ask a lady how old she is. Yeah, I was trying to figure out a timeline here.
That's fine. I work out. I take care of myself. I look good. I look like nothing I've been through. I've been through the fire, and I look like nothing I've been through, and that's only the grace of God, because He's here to, like, in this human trafficking walk, there's so many girls with so many different stories. It's so wide. I'm here to help the girls that are living in deception, that don't think they're prostitutes.
A different level.
Mm-hmm. And it's scary because it's harder to get out of, because you're not being beat on, and you're not made to walk the streets, and you're not getting, you're not giving all your money to this pimp, and you're keeping all your money, and you're thinking, oh, nobody knows. And you're
just an independent woman.
I'm just an independent woman, and I'm still going to church, and I'm still pretending, and I'm still faking out here. And it just chips away at you. And no amount of material things, the amount of money, nothing can, like, heal that.
How do you deal, and this is, I guess, a broad question. I'm trying to figure out a perfect way to ask it. But, moving forward, you're now a business owner. Mm-hmm. You're now, like we were talking earlier, I mean, you've even been on CNBC.
Yes.
And for the things you've accomplished and what you're doing. And I want you to tell a little bit about that in a minute. But first, my question is, I'm guessing here, and I'm imagining that there has to be episodes where you think back and the shame creeps in, or the embarrassment creeps in. How do you deal with that?
I'm gonna tell you one thing. Every time, like, there's so many organizations out here. They have the galas, and you go talk. You go talk about your story.
That's where I met you.
Met me, and every time you take that walk of shame. Every single time, even though you're not out of it, but you have people looking at you like, oh, she's a victim. Oh, you take that walk of shame, but it's okay. Because it's something that Dominique told me. And it's like when Jesus says, take up your cross and follow me. Mm-hmm. I'm taking up my cross. That's the courage that I have, because I'm still taking that walk of shame. You still take that to say I'm a prostitute, because now they put a fancy term, human trafficking, on it. But a prostitute was a very low person. You're considered the lowest of the low, So you still, in society, you're considered the lowest of the low. So like a crackhead, or like you're just considered gutter, So you still take that. You still have that scarlet letter. You remember the book? I love reading, but the scarlet letter, you carry that scarlet letter on you. But I carry it now with instead of shame, it has become my super cape, my hero cape, because I want to go help girls and women and boys too, because men go through this just as much. There's boys out here that are being molested and raped, and
the percentage of it being boys is growing substantially.
It's growing, and it's been like this. It's been like this. They just didn't talk about it. Yeah. But now it's boys in your face. Ashamed of it, and I'm gonna tell you, and I know people. People gonna come at me after this, but that's why we have these boys that want to be girls now, and they put wigs on, and they put lipstick, and they put dresses on. That's why we have so many transsexuals out here now. And I'm sorry I'm saying this, but it's true. It's an agenda. It's true. These are boys that have been molested when they were kids. And their
think so?
identity. Yeah, I do. And their identity is stolen. You know, and
I can see it as a possibility for sure.
It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. Like I don't judge them or I have compassion for them because they're hurting just like us. It's a sickness.
Yeah.
It's a sickness.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, you know, like same with the other survivors I've met, the primary reason that you're so open about it is to help, like to help young women. And, you know, I've seen the statistics. It's very important because, you know, I'm interviewing 3 survivors in this 8-part series. 3 of the 4 are Black women. And the statistics bear out that incredibly higher percentage of the victims per population are young Black girls. And so that, you know, getting to them, it's tough. And you know, sometimes I guess so far what I've seen is the common denominator is everybody lets them down. There is nobody to protect them. And I told people, I said, you don't understand how incredibly important it is to have parents that love you, or even one parent that loved you and watched after you and cared, or an uncle or an aunt or something. But, you know, listening to Dominique's story, listening to your story, it's just everybody in the world let you down. And that's tough. That is a hard pill to swallow. Yeah. Even when you're younger and you're not realizing how bad it is and how terrible it is, you're internalizing it. It's happening. You're realizing that no one's there. You know, and it just makes your behavior easier, and it makes it spirals, and because there's nobody there. But you've made it out. You're helping people now, which I think is, and that's honestly the spirit y'all had is what made me do this. And it was that night. It was that night. I was at the Red M table, and I was listening, I was watching, and I'm seeing the spirit. I'm like, these women have been through hell and back, and they still are positive mindset. They're very, their spirit is really good. So I was like, what's driving that? And really seems to be the drive is to help prevent it going forward in the future. And to that, I think is wonderful. And God bless you for that, because there is no greater help than someone with a testimony, right? That's the whole idea of Christianity, is the testimony, right? That's how you bring people to Christ, and that's how you bring young girls out of these situations, and that's awesome. But now you're you now, and you is a successful businesswoman. So you went to cosmetic school.
I went to cosmetology school.
I apologize.
Yeah, it's the same, Amy. Cosmetology. I went to cosmetology school. I did 1,500 hours.
So, and you have a business now.
Yeah, I have a business now.
And can you tell a little bit about that? What's that? What you doing?
It's called Doll Maker Lashes, and I do eyelash extensions. So I put like individual lashes on.
I've seen that.
Yeah, and I also have my own brand of lash products that I sell. Yeah.
And what is it? Is it called Doll Maker?
It's called Doll Maker Lashes. My products. So I have like the shampoo to clean your lashes. I have a line of the magnetic strips. I have strips. I have like the sleep mask to protect your extensions. What else do I have?
See, remember when you were saying you had no skill set?
Yeah.
You did. You're just using it for the wrong thing.
I was using it for the wrong thing.
You had a very independent and entrepreneurial skill set, because it takes, I think, I tell people I'm almost 2 years into a business of being completely on my own, and it's a lot, and it's scary as hell, and a lot of times, but that's a good business to be in, and you've been very successful. Do you have is there more? Where are you, just in Houston, or? I'm just in Houston for now. I mean, my goal is ultimately I want my products in Target or Ulta or Sephora or even Walmart. Shoot, yeah. Why don't you go on Shark Tank? I know people are saying, "What you going to Shark?" I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready for them. I don't feel like I'm on the level of Shark Tank yet. Yeah, not just yet. Not yet. I'm getting there. If on that side of things, having people with the distribution connections that's the key to growing a brand of a product like that, right? That's a consumer product, and it would be great to see. You're starting to see, more products. Like I was in, I think, a Walgreens or something, and that was a full-on section of things for multi-billion-dollar industry. Well, I mean, but you never saw it specifically for Black people, right? And now you're starting to see that, and it's like these are things that I know it's for Black people because I didn't know what any of it was. Yeah. So I was like, okay, that's a whole. It's there now, and so to get into these places like that, that's when you really start to do well, make money, and it's a big deal because. I've talked to people in the industry that are serving Black women, and your stuff you have to do is expensive and time consuming, and
But let me tell you, my customers are Black, white, Asian, Hispanic. Yeah, I have women.
Well, I guess eyelashes. It's not hair.
It's not hair. It's the same kind of lashes. Women just like to look pretty. Period. And
I've seen it. I've seen the technology. It's basically you're gluing a individual extension on the individual eyelash to make them longer.
It's very tedious. It takes about an hour and a half
just to do one person.
Just to do one person. I mean, my skills I've been doing it for 8 years, so I can finish like in an hour. But if it's like volume, I can do like an hour and 45.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And is there a website for that or anything?
It's www.dollmakerlashes.com.
I love how the tone of your pitch of your voice changed when the pride and the giddiness came
because
out.
I just remember like I went to, after I finished cosmetology school, I was completely lost again because I knew I went to go work at Great Clips and I went to work at Dry Bar, and I just did not want to be in a hair salon. Yeah. Period. Like it was hair, I didn't want to do it. So I was completely lost again. And then I went to European Wax Center, and I didn't get hired, and I went to Amazing Lash and they hired me, and I got to train with like the original owner with just me and one other girl. Like now they train girls with like 15 girls in one room. I got to train like with one person. Like
where's your physical location?
I'm on Harwin. I'm 7011 Harwin Drive, Suite 217. So I'm on the corner of Harwin and Savoy. And actually, I'm right next door to the cosmetology school that I went to. So I'm going to tell you how life works. Yeah. Because this is like the best. This is the #1 school in Houston for aesthetics. It's called ICE. Like it's a hidden gem. And they do facials, they do massages. Like anybody can go get a facial massage. And the cosmetology program was it was like, hey, it was all right. But my teacher, like she taught me business. She taught me customer service. She was like, as long as she said, I don't care. You may not be the best person at cutting hair or doing whatever. She's a Puerto Rican lady. And she was like, but if you build your relationships, you remember the dog's name, you remember this and that, you got them. Them people gonna be coming, and they do. Me and my customers, we're like this. Like,
so I'll give you an example of how that's true. That was done to me. Yeah, not done. It sounds bad. I went to a coffee shop in Houston. It was called the Merchant, and I know they got a new location, but it was right beside my my building at the time. And I went in there and talked to the guy, and I told him, ended up telling him I was from Georgia. Okay, I go traveling internationally for 3 weeks for work or something, and I come back and I go in there and I get my cortado. I get the cortado. There's a peach drawn in. You know how they do the top thing? Yeah. It was a peach. Yeah. I was like, okay, customer for life, because that attention,
right. It's the little things.
It's little things.
It's the details.
That's awesome that you got that down pat, because that's perfect.
And they know their personal business. They're not going anywhere.
Well, and also when I make the when I do the social media for this, I'll put the contact. And if you want people to have the ability to email you if they have questions, if they have concerns or advice, and so that leads me to, I guess, the final thing I'll ask you here is what two things I asked. One is what advice would you give to young people to avoid this, and then what advice would you give to parents to be on the eye out for this? What are they looking for? How can they help it?
Okay, young people, please finish school. This is no life. The prostitution, trafficking, it's not glamorous at all. It looks like it glamorous because it's so glamorified on everything. Rap glamour, it's glamorified on TV. Pretty Woman is what made me want to, honestly, watching Julia Roberts get with Richard Gere, and that's what I wanted to do. I was like, I want to do that. It's false. It's TV, television. Yeah. It's not real. I would say find out, like, what do you want to do, and pursue it with everything. Nothing worth having comes easy, and the streets don't love nobody. Like to even make it out. I'm a rare breed. I'm rare. People like women like me do not make it out, or the ones that do, They don't talk about it. I have some friends that are married now, and they're too ashamed, or they don't want their husbands to know.
It's understandable.
Yeah, it's understandable. But I know I have a purpose and a mission. I live my life on purpose. I have a purpose out here. Like, God gave me a mission and a purpose to go back and save girls and men and boys too, and women. And parents, please, if your child is, if you notice a sudden change, if they're overly sexual, a child should not be sexual at 8, 9, at any age whatsoever. They should not want to wear crop tops or show their skin or wear makeup. Something's not right if they're overly sexual. And just speak life into them, and listen and talk to your child and ask them what their dreams and aspirations are. And it's their life. It's not I know you want the best for them, but it's their dreams. It's not your dream. It's their dream. And just support your children, and just I would say speak life into them, because what you speak into that child is what they grow to be. You know, if you always speak a negative, you'll never be nothing. I wish I never had you. You're nothing, this and that, this and that. Then you're going to feel like, okay, I'm nothing. Or if you're constantly calling your child, or you look like a slut, or you act like a slut. In my case, I was like, okay, well, that's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be the best at it, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing Dominique said she emphasized was communication. Nothing's off limits.
Right.
Talk about everything. Talk about sex from the time they're very young.
Right.
And I've seen studies that show that method is much more successful than let's just don't talk about it.
Yeah, and I grew up in a house called, we're not going to talk about it.
Same here.
Yeah.
Same here. That we never talked about it. And I wasn't, that was just, I mean, they didn't know better. It wasn't like they were just simple country folks,
Right.
and it wasn't bad parenting or just terrible people. They just didn't know better. And that's what we got, is a lot of parents out here that don't know better. And I guess that's a call to people that don't have children, or even if they do, look out for other people's children. You know, you never know what just a little bit of, hey, bud, you've got talent, or hey, sweetheart, you're going somewhere in this world. Don't ever forget it, and that might be the thing that saves them.
Right.
And so it's like, always be as kind to children, because they're so impressionable. And I remember when I was young, people would say to me that, I remember Johnny Dye. He was a guy. He'd always tell me, "Boy, you're the smartest one here. You're ahead of everybody." That was when I was 7 years old, and I never forgot that, and it meant something,
Yeah.
So, but thank you so much for being brave and sharing your story. I know it's tough, and it doesn't even seem tough, which is even more amazing to me. But I know it's tough. But thank you, and thank you again. I appreciate your help. You're out there working to prevent this going forward, and to try to settle it out going forward. So I admire you, and thank you for coming on. And I wish you well in your business, and I wish you well in your mission to help fight this scourge.
Thank you.
Thanks. We're done.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
Thank you
What,
for
a
listening.
minute and 20?
We hope you enjoyed the show and accept the mission. Please subscribe to the Mission Zero podcast on your preferred streaming service, and be sure to give us a 5-star review.